Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going? So the other day, somebody chimed in one of the comments of one of my videos, and they said, "Here you go, Brad. You're welcome," and gave me an item number for an eBay auction. And intrigued, I went to the eBay auction, and I saw this, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, this is probably my one and only chance to ever pick up one of these." We're gonna open this. I'll show you what it is, and yeah, man, I'm really excited about this. I've been looking for one of these for years, just kind of keeping my ear to the ground, trying to find one, and here it is. A little bit of discoloration there, but this, they said, at least, is new old stock. So this was never sold originally. That it was apparently you know, it was in a music store's stock for a long time, I guess. And the guy who bought this, in the listing, he said he bought this for one of the reissues of this model. So anyway, I'll go ahead and tell you. This is for a 1967 Hofner 459 VTZ guitar, and you can see it's never been used because it does not even have an impression for an arm bar. There's no impressions at all in this. In fact, this is an S&S case. S&S made cases for a lot of different manufacturers, including some Gibsons. And these are really good cases. They were made in Brooklyn, New York, as you can see right there on the tag. This one is in immaculate shape on the inside. Like I said, it's just, you could tell a guitar was never in here because there's no impression of one at all. So this thing has never held a guitar. He bought it for one of the Hofner reissues. I think they called them the Igniter series. Which I don't think they made a whole lot of those either, and sold a whole lot of those, but they only made those for a short time. But this case apparently doesn't fit that series, but it does fit the one that I have. And if you guys have been following the channel for a long time, you'll recognize what this goes to, but I'll show you. There's my cello. I may bust out soon. I gotta put that the pin in it, so I gotta find the tool to put the pin in. That's a handmade cello. May play some cello for you guys. But see this guitar right here? This is a 1967, again, rare as hen's teeth, 459 VTZ. You can see the trim on it right there. And man, I'm crossing my fingers and praying to God that this is the right case for this. He did say it was for the VTZ, so I'm gonna trust what he says over whatever, but I think this is supposed to go in there. Will it fit? Will it fit? Is this what I need? It sure looks the part. I don't know if it's going to accommodate that arm though. It sticks up pretty high. Oh man. Oh man. Is it going to fit? It doesn't fit with the arm. How are you supposed to fit this thing with the arm? Because see how tall it is? It doesn't fit though. He did say VTZ, and that is the V is for vibrato. It's not gonna fit, no matter what I do, is it? Man, it sure fits like a glove otherwise though, doesn't it? So at this point, I'm sure you can understand I was feeling a bit dejected, but I decided to go ahead and do some work on this guitar because it's been a little while since I've had it out. It had a broken string on it. The strings were just generally old anyway. It had some fretwork that had needed to be done since I bought the thing. And yeah, just generally it has been in need of a setup for a long time. So I thought I would take this opportunity to set this guitar up. We may come back to this case a little bit later, but first I want to take a look at the history of the Hofner 459s. 1967 was the year of flower power, free love, riots, Vietnam, and psychedelic rock. The Rolling Stones, Hendrix, Cream, The Doors, and the Beatles were all at the height of their musical prowess, and all were using fuzz tones in much of their music. This new brand of fuzzy, overdriven rock had become so mainstream, the guitar companies were taking notice. The first electronic fuzz was created by Orville Red Rhodes in 1962 and used on the Venture's 2,000-pound B recording that same year. Also in that year, Gibson developed and released their Maestro FZ1 fuzz pedal, which was famously used on the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction in 1965. This same circuit was also oddly included factory installed in their EB-0F fuzz tone bass of this time period. By 1967, competitors such as Arbiter and Moserite were also getting their slice of the fuzzy pie in pedal form. But in that year, a pair of intrepid companies started building the fuzz directly into the guitars. One of them was German maker Hofner. Following the success of their 500/1 model violin bass, thanks in no small part to Paul McCartney's de facto endorsement, Hofner decided it would be a good idea to issue a line of Beatles-themed 6-string guitars. Best known collectively as the 459 models, these short-lived 6-string violin guitars generally consisted of 2 ranges. A regular 459 Beatle with sunburst finish, rosewood fretboard, and chrome hardware, and a G459 Super Beatle with blonde finish, ebony fretboard, and gold hardware. The range also offered several options, from a plain 459 with passive electronics and no vibrato, all the way up to the G459VTZ, which at a whopping $635 with a hard case, $5,000 in 2021 money, featured every top-of-the-line appointment including active circuitry, complete with the treble boost, and built-in fuzz. Active electronics were cutting edge in 1967. The only 6-string guitar to previously feature an active circuit was the Burns TR2 from 1963, which had not sold well due to its high cost and low demand. But the Hofner 459 TZ and VTZ models, along with the Vox Phantom 6 Special from that same year, were the first 6-string guitars to feature an onboard fuzz circuit. The fuzz on the Hofner can be described as very usable when dialed in, but the treble boost can be very tinny and unmusical without the right amp settings. The exceptionally high price tag, along with stiff competition in the guitar market and limited niche appeal, meant the 459 was not a big seller and was dropped from the Hofner lineup after the Beatles breakup. It has been estimated by some that as few as 25 of the G459 VTZ Super Beatles were ever sold. Here we are with the Hofner up on the bench. I've forgotten what strings I put on this, so let's measure the scale length. So for those of you who don't know how to measure scale length, here's how you do it. You want to measure from the nut, which in this case is the 0 fret right there. If you have a nut that serves as your 0, then you want to measure from the nut, but I want to measure from about the center of that fret to about the center of the 12th fret. So 12 and 3/4, a little under 12 and 3/4 right there. It's not quite Fender. Maybe 25 1/4, something like that. A little over 25 1/4. Hell, I don't know. I probably should measure it in millimeters.
Royale with you.
This guitar at some point was refretted up to, let's see, it was refretted up to right there. So it's refretted up to the 9th fret. Whoever owned it at first probably didn't use it much up here and did a bunch of cowboy chord stuff. And they did have, I will show you this, they did have a bunch of marks on the back of the neck where obviously they used a capo a lot. You can see that. See all the capo use up and down the back of the neck there. At least I guess that's what what it is. Either it's a capo or person who did the frets did that, messing around with it. This looks like a cracked neck, but it's not. That's just in the finish right there. I'm not sure what this finish is. I think this might be some kind of poly finish because it's I don't know. It's hard to say, but it does crack very easily on all the Hofners I've had. They develop cracks pretty easily on the top, and this is not unusual to see one that has this many finish cracks on the top like that. This is not the original bridge. I think I've shown this on the channel before, but this is not the original bridge. The original bridge would have been different, but I'll tell you what we're going to do now. First of all, we're going to turn this pickup around, I think, because it's the wrong way around. I had one of these pickups rewound at one point, actually. I'm going to take this out for a second. I think it must have been this one because it's got the little bit of solder right there. But then again, it might have been this one. Not sure. One of them was rewound by Brantley Rewinds. There's a sound post right there, kind of like with a violin or a cello. Next thing we're going to do after we get this back in, I'm going to do a little bit of fretwork. This may take a little bit, but since I'm working on this thing, and again, I don't think I've ever done really any work on this thing. I think I just bought it and started playing it, and you know, it never has been perfect, but I've never really cared. I do that a lot, man. I'll play a guitar that has all sorts of problems and issues and just kind of work around it. You know, if I know that a fret, like my Martin has a couple of high frets on it, a little higher up the neck, but, you know, it's never bothered, well, it does bother me, but it's never bothered me quite enough to start filing on it, I guess is what I'm saying. But yeah, this is definitely one of those guitars, man, that you don't want to lose any parts. You don't want to break anything. I mean, that switch right there, I have no idea if I could get that switch. I have no idea how much it would cost if I had to go get that switch. That's a Hofner style switch. I've only ever seen it on Hofners, and that's got to be hard to get. I've never been able to track down an original bridge for one of these. The bridge for the blonde model is different than the bridge for the sunburst version that you see. Now the sunburst they seem to have made a lot more of than this blonde Super Beatle version. This one has got to be one of the most rare guitars they ever made. Oh yeah, while I'm thinking about it, one other thing I want to do before we get into any kind of fretwork, I want to take the neck off. I've never had the neck off of this thing. I want to take it off. I want to see what kind of shim action we got going on down here. And just out of sheer curiosity, I want to know what's going on. I'm doing all this on a complete whim. You know, I mean, this is something that's been needed for a long, long time. Like I said, man, I never work on my own stuff. I just kind of roll with it, and it kind of inspired me, you know, the guy messaging me about that case, it kind of inspired me to bust this thing out and do something with it, so. Oh, you know what? Oh, you gotta be very careful getting the neck off. I forgot about that. I gotta be, shit, I'm glad I saw that. I'm glad I saw that. Okay, so the neck is actually attached to the pick guard, so you got to be careful about that. And this one is actually, I think they might have glued that in when they tacked it on. So let's just unscrew that, and then we'll get the whole thing off. See, the problem is there's a little tack nail that tacks into the side of the neck right up here that holds the pick guard up off the body. If I don't take this off, the whole thing, it'll end up breaking. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Right? All right. Okie dokie. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Let's take a look at the neck. It's got a shim. There's a shim there. A little bit of some paper and stuff, too. You can see these bits were glued on. Got a little bit of crackage going on here on the neck block. Maybe they didn't drill it well enough before they put the mounting holes. I don't know. I might shoot some glue into that, some wood glue, before we put this back together, just to shore it up a bit. You can see this is a laminated top, which I knew that anyway. Right there, you can see it's a plywood, which is good, because if it wasn't plywood, it would be a lot more fragile of an instrument. I'm kind of debating what to do about the neck thing. It's got a shim in it. I'm not sure why this paper's on it. Let me see what else I got in terms of what I might be able to shim this with. Oh, it's coming out there. It's coming out. I might as well pull, yeah, let's go ahead and pull that out so we don't have to worry about that. That's a pretty thin piece of wood right there for that shim. Let's get us something a little bit thicker, and we'll shim it with just something a little bit thicker in the first place. Instead of having multiple shims on there, we'll just, you know what I'm saying? You feel me? Can you dig it? Ooh, there is something there. Was it 55? Does that say 55 right there? Pretty thin. We probably should about double that and kick the neck back just, you know, a hair more than it even was before. That'll give us some room to jack up the bridge maybe slightly, get above those pickups. I think that right there might get it. That piece of wood right there. Okay, I'm just going to stick a little dab of super glue on it. Just glue it into place. We'll let that stick, and then we'll come back to it. First thing I really want to do is I want to get my fret file and start filing on this 0 fret, because it's got a lot of really nasty dimplage going on there. Anybody who has played on a 0 fret before knows that when you have dimples on a 0 fret like that and you try to do vibrato up here, you know, you get the little ting 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 in and out of the dimple from the string as it kind of moves back and forth across that area. So I want to file that, but I also want to show you this. I thought this was kind of interesting. I wouldn't have guessed this, but this is the case, that this fretboard is actually 7.25 inches. So that's on par with like an old vintage Fender. So they've gotten close to Fender on the scale length by the look of it, and they've also gotten kind of close to, or well, they've gotten spot on Fender on the neck radius. So that's, I don't know whether they were copying Fender or what. Perhaps not. Maybe Fender was copying them. But no, I just thought that was interesting. So I want to, you know, I kind of thought twice about this. I'm actually still kind of mulling it over in my head. There are some chips. They're not too bad, but you know, you could see some chippage right there. There's just a few chips along these frets that were redone on a couple spots. It's not real bad, but it's just something that kind of bothers you, you know. Somewhere around here I have some, I think some rosewood and maybe some ebony. So this fretboard is ebony. I'm not sure if I've got ebony or not. Some sawdust, but that's what you really need to do that right. So I think I might save that for another time when I'm sure I've got some ebony sawdust in a baggie or something. I do have some filler. I could fill that in, but I don't think I'd be happy with it if I just used fillers. And plus that stuff, over time, it kind of comes off on your fingers. But I think definitely I just want to do some fret work on this. I had some areas up here where it would kind of fret out a little bit here and there. So I want to level and crown frets, and I want to definitely do that 0 fret right now. So that's much better so far. It's not done yet, but you can see all the dimples at least are out of it. And it looks like the fret wasn't seated all the way, especially up here in the middle. You see how there's a bit of a space under there. I want to see if I can just kind of tap that and maybe get that down somewhat. Yeah, no, that's a lost cause. See, I think what they did was they probably put a little bit of super glue down in the fret slot. They put the fret in, and they didn't tap it all the way down before the glue dried. So it is where it is right now. I'm not going to mess with that. Okay, I want to show you this. If I could sight down this neck. Again, it's re-fretted up to this fret. And you'll see that these frets, see how they're nice and rounded off on the ends right here, and then from right here back, it just gets a little bit nasty on the fret end. So we're going to fix that. So use this fret file and come up to the edge of the fretboard like so. And usually what I do is I angle it over about 45 degrees or so. And then just file that off. So that's stage one, and then we're going to do the other side as well. Okay, so step one is to get the ends angled up. Now what we can do is go ahead and fret file those ends. And the thing is too, you know, I realize that you know, if you're into this sort of work, you probably already have seen this a million times on a million other channels and a million other places. Maybe I'll do it a bit different than someone else does it. I don't know. But I want to show you what the fret ends look like now. So let's zoom in on that. It is really sharp right in here. My finger actually catches right there. Now this little file I like quite a lot. This is I don't know, I've worn it off. It's a little Stu Mac fret file. It's rounded on one end right here. I don't know if you could see that, but this top part right here is rounded on the edges. Then this bottom part is flat. What you want to do is put the rounded edge on the fretboard, and then basically what we're going to do is just round this off. And this is more art than it is science. There, you know, everybody's going to have their own way of doing this. And you know what I try to do is just start like this, and then sort of roll my way. I guess I yaw my way this way, like this, and then I will also roll it up as I'm going to get this edge here rounded off. But the one that's going to make the most difference for your sharp edges is getting the sharp. There's a sharp edge down here on the very bottom of that fret that you gotta get that off. You gotta round that off on the bottom for sure. And it's always helpful to just come up, like I said, roll up over the top of it like so. Go the other way. Gently roll up the top. Just come back and forth a few times, and I like to come down the edge here and just make sure I've got nothing sharp on the edge there. But that's nice and rounded. There's no more stickiness. That's all that stickiness. I can still feel it on that one, but that one not sticky. So that one's ready to go now. So yeah, now we've got to do both sides of the fretboard all the way back up. So I got to do that same thing I just did there 14 more times. Or 13 more times. And a 0 fret, so 15 more times.
Can you count, suckers?
And again, more art than science. This is just something that when you find your method of doing it, it's kind of like riding a bike too. You just kind of never forget it, really. This is really, really long overdue. I've been dealing with these fret ends for years now, since I bought this guitar. I think I've only changed strings on this one time. I do not change strings nearly enough on any of my guitars. And basically you just go until it feels nice and looks nice, you know? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's no real hard and fast rule. You just more art than science, man. Most of this kind of work really is all just about everything to do with guitar is just as much art as science. I mean, yeah, there's some principles that you kind of stick by and some things you definitely do not want to do, but I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And you know what's funny, I've often heard people say that, but I've never actually seen people skin a cat, let alone like do it multiple ways. So I don't know, maybe I should stop saying that. There we go. That's much. See, that feels so good compared to that. I mean, that my finger actually stops right there. So that side feels perfect now. 100 times better. You would never know that that was refretted just by feeling the edge of that fretboard. Okay, so I got a radius sanding block. I got a little bit of sanding paper on this. This is 7.25 inches, and we're just gonna level these frets. Alright, put that with the sticky side facing this way, so any stray stuff that flies, maybe that'll catch it. Okay, so how can you tell when you've gone far enough? Well, usually a good indication is if you see bits of the frets consistently all the way down, especially in the areas that you know you wanted to concentrate on, then you know you've probably gone far enough. But we're going to also look at the frets a little more closely and see if there are any big indentations that are left. I think everything's looking pretty consistent right there. See what I mean about some of the, see right there beside that fret, for instance, it's just, you know, got a little bit of a gap, and then we've just got some gap there too. It'd just be nice to fill that in and do it right, especially while I'm already working on the frets. Would make sense, wouldn't it? I just don't have any ebony sawdust, which is really what I need for this to do this right, so I would rather wait. But we'll go ahead and crown these frets. There's always going to be somebody, why aren't you taping off the fretboard when you're doing this? Well, I find it less of a hindrance to have to move tape than it is to just simply be very careful. That's about the best I could tell you. Now, sometimes you do slip and things happen, but this is my guitar and I'm not that worried about it. So if it was a customer's guitar, yeah, I would probably tape off, or I would use one of these guards. I would use a fret guard like that. Got a couple of these. I've got a few of these actually. Some of them I've got some for bass and for guitar, so they accommodate both. So there we go. That one is now crowned. We can move on to the next one. See the reflection of my finger in that fret right there? You see that little reflection moving around? Now see this one? See how it's not as reflective? Now watch this fret now as I crown it. Now then, you see how you can see my reflection a little better? You see that reflection going on right there in the fret? That's what a crowned fret looks like, as opposed to one that hasn't yet been crowned, that's only been leveled. So the crowning just moves it basically moves the tooling marks. It makes them smaller, and it moves them from marks that are going this way, parallel to the fretboard direction, and marks that are going perpendicular this way to the fretboard. If you're thinking about getting into this, spring for the diamond fret crowning tools. Don't mess around with the other ones. They're junk. Okay, you get a lot of chatter and a lot of tooling marks with the other style that are not diamond. It's best just spring for the good tools, man. It's not worth it. I will tend to skimp on things that I shouldn't, but this is not one of those tools to skimp on. Just get the diamond fret crowning tool. It's interesting. I could tell that these frets had not been properly radiused to this fretboard, to the 7 1/4 inch radius. They were a flatter radius than that on the top of the frets themselves. So somebody basically had refretted it, and if they did crown them, they crowned them to something more like a 10 or a 12, it looks like. And the reason I can tell that is because I can just tell from where I was doing my leveling, there was more taken away from the edges than there was the center. What's funny is the more you do something like this, the more you start hearing the files talking to you. And right now it sounds to me like this file is saying cowboy, 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 cowboy. Over and over again. Listen to this. See, cowboy, cowboy, cowboy. Does that make me like schizophrenic or something? It probably does, doesn't it? I probably shouldn't say that. Now, some of these frets up here, up high, look like they have had marks in the frets, possibly since it left the factory. Now, there was a mark right there that looked to me like that might have been an old factory fret mark. That one had some factory tooling marks in it as well. I could tell it was factory because it was just deep and it was old, and it had a lot of very old patina down inside of the little grooves. Now this is definitely the part where, you know, if this was a customer guitar, I would not be filing over this body like this without doing some precautions. But, you know, again, I'm going to be very careful. This is my guitar. Don't yell at me. I'm going to be super careful over the body. And if I do slip, I'll just edit it out. And you'll never... Admittedly, these are not perfect, but this guitar is now in better shape than it has been, definitely since I've owned it, and probably since it left the factory in the first place. I probably should replace these saddles with some roller saddles. That would probably be a good upgrade on this. As a matter of fact, that might be something that I go ahead and order here in the next day or two, some roller saddles for this, because I've always had trouble with these saddles anyway, breaking strings and stuff like that. I would just much rather have roller, especially with this. I'd rather have a roller saddle, so I have to see if I can find some in gold. I'm not going to bother miking this cab up or any of that kind of nonsense. I'm just going to play through this. This is the treble boost circuit, okay? This is treble boost with fuzz. That's no pedals, that's straight into the amp with this guitar. Now granted, I have cut all of the treble out of the amp, so I'm slamming the front end with a lot of treble. There's nothing special about this amp particularly. This is tweed style amplification right here. I mean, this is something that would have been available in the 1960s or the 50s even, so. I mean, you know, that's with the treble and the fuzz. Now I could cut back over here to just fuzz. Okay, so this is just fuzz. You can see a lot of that treble dropped out, so I have to add it back into the amp if I want it in my tone. So. That's fuzz. Here's just treble. Just treble's a bit weird, but I mean, there's a place almost for all of it. I'll be honest. It's just, and I need to come in here and clean this, all of this stuff. Thank you guys for sticking around for this one. I really appreciate it, and for now, we'll see y'all later.